Ooh, that's working. Huh. Good stuff. Hello everyone. This is me, Popey, doing some faffing about, making sure my stuff works. Oh my gosh, that was fast. Hello, silent robot. Oh, snort. Hello. How you doing? I'm just testing OBS and making sure everything works. Let's see if I do that. Hopefully this should Yeah, I could turn that game audio down a little bit actually, that's a bit too much. Thank you. Excellent, thank you very much. Right, so this stupid game, let's set my name. Yes. What do I look like? Which one of these looks like me? It's not that one. Hello, Antec Designs. That one's got glasses on. He looks like he's got a beard. Is that a MAGA hat or is that a red hat? I can't quite tell. Quite like. He looks like a policeman. I'm not quite sure. One of these. I think actually, I think him. Yes. Oh, I just mixed it all up. Oh man. All right, he'll do. Right. I think that's everything. So, my goal is to get a high score on this high score table. Let's see if this works. So, the idea of this is you can destroy these gold things, jump in the air. It's one of those, I guess it's a moon buggy that has that. Oh god, I'm so terrible at this game. Yeah, that's not what I wanted to jump. So the idea is you destroy these things or jump over them. You can jump the pits and destroy the things and then get past a checkpoint, and the little spaceships up the top will start firing at you, and you have to avoid the nonsense. Oh gosh! Wow, that didn't take long, did it? Pew 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 pew. So this game is called Ascii Patrol, and it's I think it's written in C. It's just so awesome. I love it, and it's that was close. Yeah, it's written in C. I made a snap out of it, so it's in the Snap store under my name, because it looked quite cool and I was interested in snapping something new, and I was bored the other day, so I snapped this. Yeah, I'll tell you what, let's jump that. There we go. This is mental. So the only reason I'm doing this is to play this stupid game and to test out all my OBS settings and all that kind of stuff, make sure streaming works, because I want to do some streaming at some point. Probably not this game. This is just a sample. This is just a thing that I'm... Oh, look at that. I finished a level. Oh my gosh. Area clear. Huh. I don't know what savings means. Does that mean saving my ammo or something? I don't know. Oh well. Spread their forces. Oh gosh, you're doing pretty good, Popey. We need to stop that aliens, okay, from invading our planet. They spread their forces over a nearby area. Try to eliminate as much of them as possible. I have a feeling I'm going to do a pull request against this to fix some of this English grammar. Or maybe it's intentionally bad grammar. I don't know. Okay, Commander. Let's continue. Immediately proceeding to Sector EJ. They come with mega bombers fleet. Their bombs make huge crashes in the ground. Good luck, cadet. I'm only a cadet. Oh my gosh. Oh, hello. This is a bit of a bigger... Whee! Oh my gosh. Yes. I like that you can... Oh, man. I can't do two things at once. I can't concentrate on... Oh my gosh, I'm dead. I'm so terrible at this game. So, good question. What time... yeah, I don't know how... yeah, I'll go through the questions one by one. Right, let's have another go. Oh, man. Started from the beginning. What an idiot. So, yeah, the only reason I'm doing this is to test out the setup. This reminds me a little bit of Lunar Jetman on the Spectrum. Although that, you know, you could go left and right and you had more missions. It wasn't just a left and right, just a, you know, drive right as far as you can, as fast as you can thing. But the graphics remind me, even though the Spectrum was far better than this. So the question Silent Robot asked was, what type of content are you going to be doing? Probably, actually, something about, like, making snaps, stuff like that. Maybe. That's kind of work related. This is not work related, really. I just wanted to make sure everything works. So probably I'll, I don't know, do some kind of Q&A and some stuff about making snaps and how you make them, and maybe take suggestions on, hey, you should snap this thing. We actually have a giant wish list on the Snapcraft forum. Oh, I wasn't paying attention. So yeah, we have this giant wish list, and I thought, well, why don't we just go through it? And actually, rather than just me sit and do this on my laptop, why don't I just show people how to do it? Because, you know, that's a good way to get people learning how to do this stuff. So yeah, that's the idea, is show people. Yes, finish that level again. I am so awesome. So that's that. That's what the plan is at some point. I don't know when. I don't know what time. I don't know. Maybe I'll schedule it or something. I think probably this kind of time is probably best, because then you get all the Americans able to watch it, and it's late night, you know, in the UK, so people in Europe can watch it as well. And Paul Serafini asks, how did you find this? Lol. Yeah, I'm not actually sure how I found it, how I stumbled across it. It's weird. So there's a few things I do when I'm bored. One of the things I'll do is I'll go to GitHub Trending. If you just go to github.com/trending/program/programming language. I can't talk and play games at the same time. I'd be no good as a streamer, like playing games and like doing this, because I just can't do it. I can barely walk and talk. Look, see? I don't know. I sometimes go to github.com/trending/whatever programming language, and oh look, I've got a 791 on the high score chart. That's better than I've ever done, so that's good. Right, play again. So yes. I don't know how I found it. It could have been through a trending thing. It might have been on. I sometimes go to Hacker News or Lobsters. There's a whole bunch of websites that I poke around on where people announce new software, or they talk about the thing they've created. I mean, obviously this has been around for a little while, and I don't quite know how I discovered it, but yeah, it's been around a little while. But yes, there's a giant wish list on the Snapcraft forum, and people keep suggesting stuff, and whenever I mention snaps, they're like, oh, you should snap this thing, and I'll get private messages from friends on Telegram and stuff saying, hey, you know, you should snap this thing. It'd be really good if this was snapped. And actually, I made 3 snaps this weekend. One was this, which is installed now. Snap install Ascii Patrol. I think there's a link in the description. See if you can beat my high score. Not going to be hard to do. Yeah, so I also made a couple of other snaps, but they're desktop applications, GNOME-based applications. So the other question Paul asked was, did you find this easy to make into a snap? That's a tricky question, because part of the problem is I've been making snaps for a couple of years, and so I have a load of ingrained knowledge in my head. And a lot of people who make snaps have like ingrained knowledge. The same like with anything. Once you get a certain amount of knowledge in your head, you can like crank them out really, really fast, and you know like certain things. Like for example, I'll give you an example. This has audio, as you can hear the music, and one of the things that is a bit weird is, by default, snaps have a LD library path that points to where the runtime libraries are held inside the snap. So, typical. That is exactly the crater I get done every time. I'll tell you what, shall I just shut up for a minute and get past that crater? Let's just do that. Exploding in flight. Let's not bother, because I'm never going to get past that. So, what was I saying? Oh yeah, LD library path. So when you build a snap at runtime and you run the snap, this is all built and installed, and you run it, the snap daemon sets up your environment for the application to run in. And one of the problems is sometimes you end up with libraries that you've hand built or that are part of your application, or third-party libraries that you're bundling in your snap, and they're in weird directories. Like typically they'll be in user lib and then the triplet, the x86-64 GNU Linux triplet directory. They're in there, and most of them are in there. Like if you go looking in that directory on your computer, user lib, x86, whatever, it's different on 32-bit and it's different on Raspberry Pi ARM, but in general, user lib, Arch triplet, there'll be libraries in there. And this game has sound, and Pulse Audio, for whatever reason, I don't know why, the developers of Pulse Audio decided, or the Debian packages of Pulse Audio, I don't know who it was that decided this, but the directory that those libraries go in, the Pulse Audio library, is not that directory. It's user lib, triplet, and then there's a subdirectory beneath that called Pulse Audio. And we don't set that by default in the LD library path. So your application can't find the Pulse Audio library and therefore can't play audio. And if you've made a few snaps, you know this, right? And so you set an environment variable, LD library path equals $, $LD library path, and then you append the bit where the Pulse Audio library is, so you make sure it can find it. And it's just one of those things, you know, and you just type it in because you know it's gonna play audio, and you know you've got to put that in there. But if you've never done that, you wouldn't know. It's one of those things that you just know. And there's a whole bunch of those that are in my head and other people's heads, like Martin Wimpress, who I work with, who also has made a ton of snaps. There's a whole bunch of stuff in his head. Some of it's the same as the stuff that's in my head. Some of it's different. Like, I'll mention to him, I'm making a snap and this thing doesn't work. He goes, oh, now you need to change this, because that's what I did in half a dozen other snaps. Now, I can hear what you're shouting at the screen. Hey, Alan, shouldn't the documentation be better and cover all of this? Well, yeah, it should, actually. It should cover all of these, like, weird esoteric eventualities, but that's actually quite hard to make legible, readable, useful documentation that has loads of, like, special cases and, you know, if you're making a server application, do you really care about Pulse Audio? You know, unless it's an audio server, like, you know, Plex or something like that, you might need access to Pulse Audio. So, you know, you got creating that documentation that is readable, easy for someone to pick up, but also covers every eventuality is actually surprisingly hard, and we haven't succeeded in doing a really good job of that. So, have I got further than I've ever got before? I think I have. Yeah. So then Silent Robot, sorry I'm taking so long to get to your questions, but you know, I have to focus on saving the planet or whatever I'm doing. Silent Robot says Snap DaVinci Resolve. Now, if I'm right, DaVinci Resolve, that's a video editor, isn't it? And it's made by the people who make, is it Blackmagic? Those people? I don't know. I know it's on the list of things. Oh, is that a mine? I bet it is, isn't it? Or is it? I'm going to avoid them anyway, because I reckon they're mines. I didn't read what the commander said. There's my problem, you see. The commander was chatting away, and I was blathering on about snaps and stuff to you guys and video editors. Yeah. Right, so Paul makes another point. I guess the problem... I can't read that text while I'm jumping over mines. I guess the problem, snaps are changing quite a lot recently as well, which is good. Makes documentation hard. Yeah, that's also true. So, for example... are these really? Yeah, they are mines, aren't they? So that is a good example of that. Like recently, there was a new feature added in Snapd 2.37, and it made it possible for you to make a snap that accesses, that may have access to personal files, like things in dot folders. And like, let's say, for example, your Git configuration, your Git config, like by default, snaps don't allow you to access that. But that's a problem because some applications do actually need access, like legitimately. If you've got a graphical GitHub client, at some point it's going to want to read your Git config. And so in the latest version of Snapd 237, a new interface has been created. Can I go down and just start? Oh no, I can't. You can't just choose another. I'll have to finish these levels. Okay. Yeah, in 237 they added this thing called personal files and system files, which enable fine granular access to specific directories. So if you were making a graphical GitHub client, you could say, I'm going to need access to the .config that's in the user's home directory. And everyone's thinking, well, hang on a minute, surely anyone could just do that. And the answer is no, they can't, because when you upload a snap to the store, there are defaults for what interfaces are connected, and some of them are just not connected by default. And the security team will review when a new snap comes along which interfaces the developer has specified that they want to connect. So if they say, I want to connect to personal files, damn it, and I want to access Git config, then we can look at the application and say, okay, well, it is a Git client. That makes sense. If it was like something like a fart app or a webcam application, then you might be thinking, hang on, why is this fart app want access to Git config? And so we would deny it, or the security team would deny it. And so I think it's a problem that, like, even I didn't know about that personal files thing and system files until fairly recently. And in fact, 237 of Snapd isn't even out yet. So, but the good news is 237 is in the beta channel, and so developers could start preparing their snaps to have access to these things, and they could upload them now, and the security team could start reviewing them. So once 237 starts rolling out stable and has this new feature, the developer can like publish their snap on day one when it's ready. God, I'm terrible at this game. So I hope that answers your question. I'm happy to answer any other questions. I'm also keen to know, does this look alright? Yeah, the actual purpose of this is the audio sounding alright. Is my microphone loud enough? You know. Oh, God. Really makes me jump when he crashes. I've moved my microphone, it's down here. Normally I have it hanging up here, but it was kind of in the way of my face, and you know, everyone needs to see my beautiful face. Not. I deliberated about whether to actually have the webcam on, but I know some people like to have it so you can like express yourself, and I was thinking if I'm going to do tutorials, then it might be handy to have. Oh dear. What about the aliens, you know? What if you could play the part of the aliens and bomb this horrible guy who's blowing up all these rocks and destroying the environment? That'd be good, wouldn't it? You could play the aliens, although the experience of the aliens here is that they don't last very long, and so Whee! So maybe you wouldn't want to play the part of the aliens because it'd be very short-lived. You'd have to. Yeah. I don't know where I was going with that. Looks okay. Strange we can see our own chat. Yeah, I guess that is a bit strange, is it? Is that not common? I thought usually people stream and I've seen... I guess the reason why you want to see the chat in there is so that people can see it later, I guess. Microphone could come up a little bit more, okay. So what I'm going to do is once I've set all these settings, you know what, just put it at 100%. It's probably the easiest thing to do. Just put it back up. Oh, so you can see the chat twice on your screen, yes. That is weird. Yeah, I don't know what to do about that. Does it need to be on there or not? Because if you're watching back later, YouTube does actually show you the chat in real time, doesn't it? So I guess it doesn't need to be there, I suppose. Oh man, I don't know. When I've watched streams, I've seen the chat embedded in the video. I don't know if that's because people are using Restream and streaming to 2 places at once. Like if I was streaming this to Twitch, then the people on Twitch would not be able to see the YouTube chat. I'm not, and I don't know whether that's another question. Do I use Restream.io and stream to both places at once, or do I use Twitch, or do I use YouTube? I just don't know. I have a Twitch account, and I could use that. So in this use case, I mean, I'm playing a game, but if I'm doing like a tutorial, and I would have a code editor and a terminal open, I don't know. You guys tell me what you think, because I do not know. What do other people do? What do other developers do in this when they're doing tutorials? Not when they're playing games, but when they're... Oh, that was close. Ow, that was not so close. I think you have to set what? Yeah, you could embed it with Restream. Could be better without for this case. Yeah, I appreciate this feedback. Make it simple, choose one. Yeah, I think you're right. I think I just choose one because it seems this whole faff to do both. And I've seen some people complain that Restream plays around with the stream as well. And the other thing I worry about, and part of the reason why I chose this game, that it wasn't just to show off the fact that I've made a snap of this thing. Part of the reason that I chose this game is because it's Ascii, and I would imagine I'm going to have a code editor and a terminal open a lot of the time, and I wanted to make sure that the encoding worked, and so you could actually see, you could make out the characters and stuff. And I don't know, can you see the bombs that are coming down to me and my white... Oh, I keep pressing spacebar to jump. The keyboard layout on this game is a bit weird. I could have changed it, but I didn't. Should have changed it to QAOP space, like the old Spectrum. It's weird how WASD became the default for everything now. Even like keyboards made with those keys different colour for everything else. It's like the default. So long as you stream at 1080p, you'll be fine. Yeah, I wasn't sure about the bitrate. I've dialed it up a tiny bit, but I don't even know if my home internet connection is keeping up with this, because I haven't got the best connection. And it's not that my connection is terrible, it's that my internal network is rubbish. That's the problem. I have so my laptop is here and it goes over Ethernet over power down to the router, which is like at the other end of the house downstairs. It's like at 2 opposite corners of the house, which is a bit daft, but there we go. Thank you, Tom, for saying it all looks sharp. That's good to know. Thank you. That's really appreciated. I think what I'll do is once I've finished faffing around with this stupid game, I'll I don't know, I guess I could take screenshot. Is there some way to save the settings in I guess there must be some way to save settings in OBS. Maybe. If not, then export scene selection. Oh well, there you go. That'll probably help. So yeah, I guess I can just export that out and keep that to one side because I sometimes reinstall stuff and I forget all my settings, and then you can save profiles, can you? Okay, that's good. Thanks, Silent. Blam blam blam. This has been incredibly useful to have other people give me suggestions on what I should do differently. So, the outcome so far is make it simple, stream to one at a time, maybe turn the chat off on the screens. Oh, back wheels were hanging over the back of the thing there, weren't they? Make sure my microphone audio is nice and loud. Actually, good question, Paul. Paul's asked if I'm using... Oh, I shot one of the rotating... Looks like a fidget spinner, that green thing. If I'm using one of my ThinkPads. I don't know if you can see, but there's actually a pile of ThinkPads behind me. I'm not using a ThinkPad for this. The main computer that I use on a daily basis, this one that I'm sat at, is a Entroware. This is not sponsored, as if I would have sponsors. It's made by Entroware, and it's an Entroware Athena, and it's quite a monster of a laptop. I am actually using a ThinkPad keyboard, an external. I can't really show it to you very easily. I guess I could lift this up like this, but yes, I'm using a ThinkPad keyboard, USB job. I really love having a nipple thing, and so that's why I have an external ThinkPad keyboard. I love mechanical keyboards, but I really love this because I find I rarely use the mouse. I just keep my hands on the keyboard, and I find it much easier to use. Yes, there's a pile of ThinkPads behind me over there. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 ThinkPads behind me, and a Mac. Ignore that. But none of them are like super powerful. Well, the T450 is relatively powerful. I mean, it's an i7 and it's got 16 gig of RAM. But this thing that I'm on at the moment has got an Nvidia GPU and 64 gig of RAM and 2 SSDs. And whoops, jumped too early there. 2 SSDs, so it's quite a monster. I was very lucky. I didn't actually buy it. I have it on long-term loan, so I'm very lucky in that regard to have a super powerful computer. 520. That's not bad, is it? Got to try and get higher than 520. ASCII is crisp. Okay, that's good to know. So I think what one of the I wasn't sure what type of video to do, whether to scroll through the big list of the big wish lists. Like if you look on the Snapcraft forum, if you go to forum.snapcraft.io, there's a thread on there called wish list, and it was really, the idea was to just get some ideas from people of what they think we should focus on snapping. And I don't know, do I want to do a video where I just go through that list and look for things that haven't already been done, because that thread is over a year old now, I think, and some of the things have actually been snapped, or they're in the process of being snapped, or we've tried to snap and it's not appropriate to snap, because some things it actually doesn't make sense to snap, like low-level libraries and stuff, like libflac or something. It makes no sense. Snaps are better off for leaf applications, not for like just one library. It doesn't make any sense. Command line tools, it makes sense to do command line tools. Like FFmpeg makes sense to have a snap because it's a fast moving project, lots of moving parts, gets updated a lot, has new features, the encoders get improved and the performance gets better, and everyone always wants the latest version of FFmpeg, so that makes sense. And in that wish list, there are some things that make sense and there are some that just don't. So I don't know, maybe I go through that list, maybe I go through it before the video and like pre-qualify. Now, one of the pitfalls of doing that, of just like going in blind and having a big list of stuff and just picking one off, is, and this is going back to something I mentioned earlier, because I've done loads of these, like loads of snaps, I know just by looking at the Git repository for an application whether something is going to be easy or hard to snap. Like, some things are super easy. Like, I'll give you an example of an easy thing. Most things written in Go, like command line utilities or little server daemons or tools, you know, those kind of things are generally pretty straightforward to snap. Similarly, things written in Rust, like there's a whole bunch of people who are rewriting the whole world in Rust. I don't have an opinion on whether that's good or bad, but they are doing it, and that's fine. And there are loads of command line utilities written in Rust, and those are generally pretty easy. They take ages to compile, but they are pretty straightforward to snap, to put into a snap, right? Whereas, what's an example of a complex thing? Well, like a video editor. Video editors are quite complicated because they also have lots of moving parts, and they often need access to like the video hardware really reliably, and they also need latest version of FFmpeg and libmlt and every other video related and audio related, you know, all the codecs and all that kind of stuff. If you're not going to build all that stuff, then you're not going to have a great success with your snapping a video editor. So generally I can look at a repository and go, that's easy or that's hard. And some things are easy, some things are hard. And I don't just want to pick the easy things, because there's no point me doing a video and say, hey, look, all these things are easy, when in fact we know full well that some things are a bit more tricky. Like the two things I did this weekend, one was a desktop music player, a GNOME GTK style desktop music player. I can't even remember what the other one was. This, and the other one was a audio editor or something. And I was doing it just as an exercise for myself, you know, bored while I'm waiting for dinner to cook or something. I'll start making a snap. So if I go through the list, it makes sense for me to like pre-qualify, but also say why things are easy or hard. You know, why would I not want to snap that? And I think that might be a good idea. Maybe I could do a little spreadsheet with a list of them all in, so I can track them and other people can track the progress and see. Woohoo! I don't know what savings means. Yes, UK Beast 89, the 89th of all the UK Beasts. What happened to all the other 88? Chromium Vappy is now in Snap. Yeah, I saw that. I don't know what that means. I mean, I know Chromium is. What's this? Oh, that looks like an alien. Oh, are they some kind of... Oh, God, they get smaller. Oh, gosh. Ah! Die, alien scum. Yeah, Chromium. Vappy sounds like... isn't that hardware accelerated video playback? I guess. So, having that in the Snap is nice. See, that's the other thing, is web browsers. Web browsers are a pain in the butt to package. And having them as snaps... Oh, it creates craters. Oh, what a disaster. Yeah, having browsers as a snap is a great idea. 66658. Where does that put me? 196. Oh, look at that. Climbing up the chart. So yeah, if you want to play this game, snap install Ascii Patrol. And then beat my high score. You'll find me in the high score table. I'm Popey. Pew, pew, pew. It's amazing, all the technology I have at my fingertips. Playing this. Ah! I love games like this though. I'm a bit of a retro fiend, so I love all this kind of stuff. Ah, I was right. Was it Vappy as hardware acceleration? Well, that's great, because, you know, these browsers are all pretty fast moving. And there's so many of them now, when you think about it. It's not just, you know, we've got Firefox, we've got Chromium, and Chrome. And what else have we got? Opera, Brave, Vivaldi. Oh God, how many browsers browsers are there? So yeah, there's a ton of browsers that make sense because they're fast moving and they've got large audiences. It makes sense to snap those kind of things, and most of them I think are done. Most of the big name browsers are snapped already. So yeah, going back to the angle of attack for this thing, I think the video that I'll do will be go through the wish list, but also go through the GitHub trending page, because that's something I do of an evening sometimes, is just go to GitHub trending, look for a project that looks interesting, especially ones that are new, because things that are new that don't have a legacy of packaging in any way are often quite good targets, because the developer has a new thing, they want to get it out there, they want people to see their application or their server or daemon or whatever it is, they want people to see it. And so if you make it as a snap, it can be available to people within minutes or hours. This thing took me, I don't know, half an hour, 40 minutes to snap, maybe. I couldn't tell you exactly how long, but something like that. But then again, this is a super simple application. Hey Joe, thanks for joining. Whee. Oh man, this does remind me so much of Lunar Jetman. Spectrum. Such a great game. Good. Jump that crater. Doing the dishes. Good man. Good man. I did them earlier. Well, I loaded up the dishwasher. The other thing I could do is take requests, like have a stream where people turn up and they just say, here's a thing, make a snap, and then try and make it, see what happens. And the problem with those is there's the distinct possibility of failure, like, oh, I can't make a snap because of this or whatever. So for example, it might be that one of the big problems is applications that are not relocatable. So when an application is typically built for Linux, it'll be the binary will be in user bin, and the libraries will be in user lib, and then some other files will be in var and all that kind of stuff. And when they're inside a snap, that they're not in the usual place, they're in different places. And many modern applications can be relocated. You can just pick all the files up and move them somewhere else, and so long as you set all the environment variables to point to where the libraries are and where everything else is and where the icon is and all that kind of stuff, they're fine. But some applications are not relocatable, and that's usually a big stumbling block, is because it either requires you to know the language that the application is written in and be able to patch it and send a patch upstream and say, hey, in the case where it's snapped, the application doesn't work because it can't find its libraries, or it can't find its graphical assets, or it assumes that this directory is writable, but in the snappy world that directory is not writable. Those kind of problems. Then that slows you down because you've got to write a patch for upstream. Now, the budget and Scarpa method is, when you build the snap, is to actually patch the thing, and you patch it as you build it. But that's not sustainable either. It's much better if it can be patched upstream, and the upstream developers have, control over that, and it goes into their, into their repo, rather than you maintaining this dodgy patch sitting in your Snapcraft YAML. That's not very nice. Tom says, oh, hang on, I'm missing some chat here. The 89th UK Beast says chicken and mash for tea. Oh man, yum. I had mash today. I had liver and bacon and mash. It was so nice. Went out to a pub for lunch and with the family, and I had liver and bacon because nobody else in the house eats liver and bacon, and because I cook, And I'm not prepared to cook liver and bacon just for me and then a separate meal for everyone else. So I only have liver and bacon when I'm out at a pub as a treat. So I had it today. It was so nice. I had loads of mashed potato. Oh yes, yum 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 yum. Loads of gravy, delicious. So yes, I love me a bit of mashed potato. It's real comfort food. Ah! God, I'm so terrible at this. Tom very kindly says, unrelated to, but looking forward to the return of the Ubuntu podcast. Yes, me too, if it comes back. We're going to have a meetup soon, I think. We should organise that. We're thinking of having it somewhere like Reading. So if any of you are in the UK and you want to come and have a beer with us and have a chat and shoot the breeze, then we'll put something out probably this week, actually. I think what we're going to do is maybe meet up sometime in March and have a beer, have a chat, and then plan whether we're going to have another year of the Ubuntu podcast. Can you believe it's been 11 years of the Ubuntu podcast? 11 years. Unbelievable. Well, it'll be 12 this year. That's quite remarkable, actually. Martin pointed out pointed out that actually, proportionally, we don't actually talk about Ubuntu very much in the show. It's like 27.3% Ubuntu by volume in that program. And it used to be, we used to call it the Ubuntu UK podcast, but because we started talking about stuff all around the world, and it wasn't really UK centric, it was just made by people from the UK, having the word UK in the name actually turned people off. We've heard people say, oh, they didn't bother listening because they thought it was all UK stuff. I was like, well, you know. So we actually, that's one reason why we removed UK from the name a few years ago. We changed it from Ubuntu UK podcast to Ubuntu podcast, which is difficult because obviously there are other people around the world who want to make podcasts about Ubuntu, and there's people in Portugal and in Spain and Germany and France who've made podcasts about, and Mexico and America, and we've nabbed the name for Ubuntu podcast, whereas they have Ubuntu podcast PT or FR or whatever the country they're from. I feel bad about that, but not so bad that I'm going to give up the name. But yeah, we spend very little time in the Ubuntu podcast talking about Ubuntu. It's more like general open sourcey Linuxy stuff, and we actually had to put a section. I think, what did we used to call it? We used to call that section something. I can't remember what we call it now. The community news we call it now. Oh, a little bit of Ubuntu or something. We used to call it a bit about Ubuntu or something like that. But the idea was that we'd make it very clear that there was a portion of the show that was Ubuntu and the rest of it was other stuff. And obviously we talk about Ubuntu, we talk positively about it because we like it. I know some people think we're absolute shills for the company, and given that 66.6% of the presenters work for Canonical, it's not an unreasonable thing for people to say, but we all started doing the podcast before any of us worked for Canonical. We just were Ubuntu fanboys and started making the podcast because of it. All those years ago. Wow. First episode of the Ubuntu podcast was recorded in what is now my bedroom, was my office, downstairs in this house. And it took hours because we didn't have a clue what we were doing. We were recording in a room. We would record a 15-minute segment, and then we'd go and have a cup of tea, and then we'd record another 15-minute segment or 20 minutes or an hour, and then go and have a cup of tea and a biscuit. And for the first few seasons we did that. We were taking a break after every single section, and it took so long to record, and it was just and we did it on Sunday as well. It was just consuming our Sundays so much, and we just couldn't sustain it anymore. So we changed it and we did it as live, and we did it during the week in the evening as well, because we just couldn't like keep giving up. Like doing a podcast is quite a commitment, especially if you're willing to commit to doing it every week or every other week. And yeah, it's especially if like we were all getting into the same place. So they would all come to my house, or we would go to Tony's house, or we would go to Laura's house. I think one of them was recorded in a pub garden at one point, or we record them at an event like Old Camp. But yeah, we used to all get together. It was only a few years ago we stopped getting together and we do it online. But we used to sit all on the sofa, have a cup of tea, then get started recording. It was quite good fun recording all at the same time, but it was like technically and logistically a pain in the butt because like we were doing it in someone's living room where the audio equipment wasn't set up. So we go to Laura's, or drive to Laura's house, or drive down to Tony's house. And from my house to Tony's was 50 miles or something thereabouts, 45, 50 miles, which is like every other week driving in the evening 50 miles to go and do a podcast. It's a bit mental, really. It's a bit daft. Who would do that? You can see why everyone does it online now. Like, why would you drive 50 miles to go and do a podcast that, like, maybe a few people were listening to? Because at the time we didn't really know how many listeners we had. But yeah. So we moved to online, and now we use Mumble. So all of us connect to a Mumble server. Right. Yes. Sorry, I've skipped some questions. The on-screen chat is glitching a bit, is it? Wonder what's going on there. It's only the chat that I've popped. Oh yeah, I can see it. It's glitching a little bit, isn't it? What is that going on? What is going on there? That's a weird encoding thing. How strange. Sorry about that. Hello, Yannick. Yes, I am using an Nvidia card and OBS. Is that a known problem? Very glad you guys spotted that, because if there's a setting for it, is there a box somewhere that I tick that says make it stop flickering, and you just tick that box and it stops flickering? That would be really helpful. I looked at the chat, Yannick. Right, what's next? Joe asks the legendary question: Snap versus Flatpak. Oh gosh, which do you favour? Advantages and disadvantages. Oh my gosh, that's a tricky one, because it's my job to work and advocate for snaps, and you know, there's nothing inherently wrong with Flatpak, and there's nothing inherently wrong with App Image. They all have their place. I find it a little bit frustrating when there's the whole us versus them thing, because it'd be nice if we could all just get on with it. But that's not the way Linux works, is it? Everyone has to have, like, their tribe that they're part of. But, yeah, that's the way it is, unfortunately. Yeah. I have one app image on my laptop. There's an application I use which isn't available as a snap. But it is available as an app image, so I downloaded and installed that, and that's one app image I have on my machine. I don't have any Flatpaks installed. There was nothing I needed that was a Flatpak. So I think one of the tricky things with Flatpak, right, and snaps, right, if you think about the history of them, Ubuntu has a success problem. Because Ubuntu was very successful, and we as in Canonical provided a service, Launchpad, which gave you the ability to build software and make it available via PPAs, right? Because of that, it was very easy for developers to target Ubuntu, and everyone did. So, you know, whatever piece of software you try and download, in general, there will either be a PPA or a deb to download, or the developer will have made their own repository or something. So we, like, in the last 5 years, we've not had a software availability problem on Ubuntu because everyone just builds for Ubuntu. And I realize some people don't use Ubuntu. That's fine. And people use Arch, and Arch developers often go and rip apart debs and turn them into package builds or whatever they call them on Arch. I'm not an expert on Arch. And so I can see how some people might not like the fact that debs are super popular and Ubuntu is super popular. I appreciate that, right? Because not everyone wants to run it for whatever reason. But we never had that problem with software availability, because everyone was already building debs, everyone's already making repositories, everyone's already using PPAs. But what we did discover is PPAs are great in some ways, but they're also a terrible idea in other ways. Because if you're a user, how do you know how to get hold of some piece of software, and how do you know which PPA you can trust, and whether the developer is just going to shut down their Launchpad account one day and goodbye that PPA you were relying on for that piece of software? You just don't know. And what if the developer decides to use that PPA for putting other stuff in there? What if they put a crazy kernel in there, or a weird version of libdbus or something? And these things can and have happened, right? And users end up with manky copies of libraries on their systems, compromising their system, and they end up not being able to boot, or if they can boot, they get a black screen, or everything works, and then 6 months later when they come to upgrade, it all breaks because there's this manky copy of libdbus on their system that they got from a PPA they don't remember ever adding to their system. So we realised that while PPAs are great, there is a problem, and part of that problem is discovery of software. It's difficult for people to find the software they want. Like end users, like not technical. I'm not talking about Arch people. I'm talking about like normal people. It's discovering software is difficult, and they want a trustworthy source to get their software from. So that's why PPAs are a little bit of a problem. And the reason why I mention all of that is because Fedora and SUSE and Debian and others didn't have that, in inverted commas, problem of success. They didn't have the problem that everyone was already building their software for their distro, because they were all building it for Ubuntu. And so when they come up with a new packaging format, it might be easier for them to convince people to package stuff in that format, because how else are you going to target the users of those distros? Whereas on Ubuntu, it's harder for me to try and convince someone to repackage their software. Like if you say to someone, you should make your software available as a snap, and they say, well, why should I? There's already an Ubuntu repository, there's already a PPA, there's already, I already service Ubuntu. And so we have to kind of have that conversation about, well, snaps are not just Ubuntu. Yeah, there's like 50 odd distros that you can install snaps on. So it's quite a complicated area, and I think we are in a privileged position of having a lot of users on Ubuntu, canonical, which means it's hard for us to have that conversation with people about moving. And there are some advantages that snaps have that, over PPAs and over putting a deb on your website or having to maintain a repository. There's lots of advantages, and I'm not going to go through them all because that's my day job. But in answer to your question, yeah, it's a tricky conversation sometimes. Yannick says there's a tutorial on his YouTube channel telling me how to fix the Nvidia issue with the chat looking all corrupt. OpenGL, uncheck allow flipping, Nvidia X server settings, instant no flickering. When you say instant no flickering, do I have to restart, or is it gonna Nvidia X server settings app? So if I go Nvidia X server settings, this thing, where's this allow flipping thing? OpenGL, there, allow flipping, uncheck allow flipping, unchecked, quit. Is it still flickering? I can't see it flickering. You guys tell me if it flickers or if I need to reboot. That would be terrible if I have to reboot. I literally rebooted last week. I'm not doing it again. I hate rebooting. I'm that guy who doesn't reboot their laptop. This laptop stays on permanently. It's like always on. So Yannick says, no, it's instant, as in apply right now. Bam, no flickering. That's magic. Oh, so glad you're here, Yannick. Thank you so much. I do appreciate that. I would never have known that. I would never figure that out until I put a video out, and then after the fact, like 2 days later, they'd be like, oh, we can't read the chat because it's all corrupted and you're terrible and you're really bad at your job. Which, you know, may all be very true. Die, alien scum. Hello, Wendy. How are you? Whee! Oh, the fidget spinners are back. Die, fidget spinners. Whatever happened to fidget spinners? What's the big thing now? What do kids want now, other than tokens for Fortnite? And what do they spend their pocket money on other than Fortnite tokens? It's got to be something like fidget spinners, isn't it? Sorry, you're probably hearing notifications from Telegram because people are pinging me on Telegram. I apologise for that. I looked at trying to filter out like non-game audio, but turns out you got to do stuff with Jack or something. I don't want to install Jack. I don't want to set that up. I don't really want to anyway. Always flip the lid on yours. UK Beast says, I always flip the lid on mine when I'm not in use. When you say flip the lid, you mean like close it. So mine is closed. So my laptop is actually under the desk, under here, and I've got an external display in front of me, and 2 more external displays up there. But the laptop is actually under the desk, and the reason it's under the desk is because it makes an awful lot of noise. Turns out, if you have an Nvidia card and you drive 3 displays, the fan goes full tilt all the time, pretty much. Sometimes it will like, and you'll get a little bit of respite, and you'll think, "Oh God, that's what silence sounds like," and then it'll spin up again immediately. You're like, "Oh no, it was short-lived." So yeah, the laptop is under my desk because the fan noise on my desk was just outrageous. You can probably pick it up if I stop talking. You'll probably be able to hear the fan noise, and I apologise for that. Not a lot I can do about that. As I say, as I said earlier, I was very kindly loaned this laptop, so I'm not complaining too much. I'm just trying to optimise the audio in here. What other questions? So I asked the question, what are kids into? And obviously in the chat, the amusing answer is Tide Pods. I think Tide Pods even now has passed on, isn't it? People are like, Tide Pods was the new cinnamon challenge, wasn't it? What are people shoving into their mouth now on YouTube videos? Do we have to wait for the school holidays to find out what the next stupid thing is? Pew 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 pew. I love the music in this thing. It's really great. There was another question I just saw. What's the best snapped game? Oh gosh, that's a tricky question. Well, this one, obviously, because I snapped it. I didn't write this, obviously. I'm not that clever. By some margin. I love the I've just realised it's got parallax scrolling, isn't it? Oh, wow. This is just amazing. Best snap game. TM Nations Forever is quite good, and that's a Windows game that Martin snapped up along with Wine, and that works brilliantly. That's a really good game, actually. It's great for if you like driving games, and Martin loves driving games. My colleague Martin is a massive driving game fan. He's got the steering wheel and, you know, the racing chair and the pedals and all that nonsense. I'm just so terrible at them. So I'm terrible at all games, actually. I rarely finish any games because I'm just so terrible at them. As you can see. How long have I been streaming? Like an hour, and I'm not even past this like second level or something. Wendy's kids are into Transformers, Sonic, and playing outside. So today I played table tennis or ping pong or whiff waff or whatever you want to call it with my son. We went and played table tennis for the first time in a very long time. I haven't played table tennis for about 20 years. And I absolutely thrashed him. Obviously, competitive dad syndrome. I'm not going to let him win. So I beat him 5 games to 0. He'll learn. So at his school, they've got ping pong tables. Silent Ascii scrolling. I like that. Yeah, at my son's school, they've got ping pong tables outside. So at lunchtime, they go out and play ping pong, take it in turns and stuff. So Sam wanted to get his own racket. Are they rackets or are they bat? Table tennis bat? Yeah, they're bats. They're not rackets, are they? Wanted a bat, so I bought him a bat yesterday, and then we scooted over to play today, and it was good fun. Need to do more of that. Hey, Ascii, hello. Yes, I love wine as well. Wine is fantastic. Like the computer software, not the drinky stuff. Well, the drinky stuff is nice, and I'm not complaining. I like the drinky stuff as well, but wine is just awesome. I remember when would this have been? So probably 19. When did wine start? Someone look that up on the internet. But I'm pretty sure I remember reading news articles on a Usenet newsgroup in 1995, maybe earlier, maybe 94. I remember reading on comp emulators announce or something was the Usenet newsgroup, and it was the developers talking about the progress of the wine project. And at the time, I thought, this is just lunacy. Why are they doing this? Why are they making this thing that's not an emulator? They keep impressing upon us that this is not an emulator. It's clearly a Windows emulator of some kind. I thought. Bear in mind, this is 20 years ago. I'm pretty sure it's 20 years ago. I used to read those on Usenet and think, why are people doing this? And they'll never get this finished. And now, look, like Proton, based on wine, can run all kinds of modern games and applications. It's insane how far we've come and how wrong I was. Oh yeah, I'm always wrong. Never use me as a barometer for future predictions. At the same time as that, there was a guy who came into work and he said, I've heard about this new thing. This was in like 1994, 95, something like that. You should have a look at it. And I was like, oh, what's that? And he said, it's called Linux, and it comes on all these floppy disks. I had to download them, put all this software on floppy disks. This was the very first time I'd ever heard about Linux. I worked at a college, a technical college near here, and one of the students was showing me, and he was talking about this thing called Linux that I should look at, and I was like, that's just rubbish. That will never take off. Again, Alan was wrong. And also, around about the same time, we started installing Windows 3.1 or 3.11 or something like that all over the place. And I was like, this is just terrible. This is awful. This will never take off. So, yeah. I don't know if I've got better at judging whether software technology is good or not, but I was certainly not right about Linux, and I was definitely not right about Windows. At the time, I was an administrator of a Novell NetWare server, and I used to, in my spare time, write programs in Pascal. I taught myself Pascal at home. I used to write stupid programs in Pascal. I loved Pascal. It was so much fun. This is like Groundhog Day. I am not getting past these levels, am I? I'm just not going to get any further. Die, alien scum! Well, I'm on another planet, aren't I? So I could be the alien scum. Could be me. Are we the baddies? Die, die. That was close. July 93. Is that when wine came out? Good lord. I was 21. Good lord. Yeah, that would have been about the right time. Sat there downloading messages over dial-up. Yannick says the first Linux distro he got into was 40 3.5-inch floppy disks. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I don't think I ever installed off of a floppy. I think the first one I actually installed after I relented and realised this actually was a good idea. I think I bought a book with Caldera Linux on. I think that was the first one. And I installed it on a Pentium... Would it have been a Pentium P200 back then? Sounds about right. Or would it have been a 486? No, I think it would have been a Pentium. That would have been about 1995. Installed it on a Pentium. That was my spare computer. So I had two computers at the time, a P200 and a P3 400 megahertz. Powerful stuff. Yes, so I got this book and I put Caldera Linux or whatever, Coral. It might have been, no, not Caldera, it might have been Coral. I can't remember. One of them. On a computer, and I couldn't figure out how to use it. I VNC'd into it and I was like, oh, this is amazing. I can remotely control it and I can type commands and, you know, do all the usual stuff like war games, try and like type commands. Shall we play a game? And all that nonsense. Those are the days. Yes, X-Clock. That was the only two things I could run. Is X-Clock, X-Eyes, with the eyes that, like, when you move the mouse cursor, they'd, like, follow your cursor around. X-Eyes and X-Clock. And a terminal. And I had no idea what I was doing. I don't think I even read the book that the CD came with. I think I flicked through. That was it. Yeah, happy days. And now look where we are. Everyone uses Linux. Pretty much. Chrome OS, Android, every website you visit. Oh man. Where am I on the high scores? Can you get to the high score table? Let's see. Can it? Oh, look at that. Oh, look, there's me, Popey. Where did I get to? What was the highest one I got to? 190 something, wasn't it? Whee. I realise this isn't the most entertaining live stream you've ever watched. Gummix. That's the guy at line 180. I think he's the author of this. He's on Twitter, Gummix. You should totally follow him on Twitter. Posts all kinds of amazing ASCII art. He posted one of like isometric 3D ASCII art. It was just amazing. Wow, look at these. Oh man, I'm never going to get that many. Right, let's try. I think I might. Yeah. 20 years later, still playing ASCII games. There was a game I used to play on. Around about that time when Linux was just coming out, and I was looking after a Novell NetWare. So we had Novell NetWare running on a little PC. We called it a server, but it was really just a slightly higher spec PC than all the others. Novell NetWare 3.12, that was it. And most of my day was spent sorting out the PCs, the client PCs that the students would use. And there was some DOS-based software they'd use. And they all had like MS-DOS 5 or 622 or something like that on them. Those were fun times. Trying to stop the students hacking these poor computers that had DOS on them. Some of the lengths we had to go to protect those computers and stop them disabling the antivirus, because the antivirus had a thing in it that would block access to the floppy drive in software, but they figured out how to just disable the antivirus so they could just put their game on a floppy disk and put it in, and they'd leave little messages for me. They'd like load up some software so that when it booted up it said, "Hello Alan." It's like, okay, thanks. I was always in an arms race with the students to try and stop them hacking into the computers. I say hack, you know, it wasn't exactly sophisticated. Yeah, so Novell NetWare. Anyway, on Novell NetWare, there was a game called Snipes, or I think it was called N Snipes. The Novell Network version was called N Snipes, and I loved that game. And I think someone has made a version that works on Linux. And basically, you're a little, the ASCII character of a little smiley face, the DOS smiley face, not emoji, like the DOS character. You were a little smiley face, and you're in a giant maze. But you could only see a tiny amount of the maze because you were zoomed quite far in, and you just used Q, W, E, A, S, D, Z, X, C, I think, as your keys to move around. And then I think you used the numeric keypad to fire in like 8 directions, and you could just fire it, and it would fire off a trail of bullets that would bounce off the walls and hit the other people. But it was a multiplayer network game, so if you had a Novell network, everyone could just run Snipes, and you could just join in, and you could all go around shooting each other. It was really, really basic, like DOS game. But yeah, if you do Google for N Snipes, N-S-N-I-P-E-S, it ran over an IPX network. It was hilarious fun playing Snipes. I miss that. Those simple games that just, you just get engaged as soon as you start. You can just start playing. None of this full motion video, watch a trailer, download updates, rubbish. It was like, launch the game, play the game. Love it. I think I miss that more, actually, is the fact, the immediacy of games back then was just open the game, play the game. There's another funny ASCII game in the Snap Store. I can't remember what it is. It might have been one I snapped. I can't remember. There's also a whole load of retro stuff in there, emulators and retro arch and stuff like that. It's pretty cool. Steve Ballmer was wrong about Linux. Well, that makes me feel slightly better. I was wrong, so was Steve Ballmer. Right. I think that's a successful test. So, was anyone watching? Did the chat glitch at all? Has Yannick's fixed the chat? Although we decided, didn't we, that I probably don't want to have the chat on screen. It's probably not worth it. That valuable screen real estate. Oh, hello. The chat just suddenly got wide and went off the edge of the screen after I mentioned it. What on earth happened there? Did someone post a very wide comment or something? Weird. Excellent. Good. Thank you for fixing the chat. Yeah. So if I mean, I can just go zoom like that and move the chat off the screen so you guys can't see it. And I can go bink and zoom that in like that, and then it's full screen. Yay! Check it out. That's better. Is that better? I don't know. Is it? But then I can't actually see the chat. I have to look across to another display. First world problems, I know. Oh, I've got to look on a second high definition display to look at the chat. Pew, pew, pew. So, yes, for those joining late, the whole reason I'm doing this is to test out my streaming, and for my jolly good friends who are watching this to tell me when things go wrong and tell me what I'm doing wrong. And we've already had at least 3 awesome suggestions of what I can do differently. So this was worth doing. Totally worth doing. I won't be doing this next weekend though, for sure, because next weekend I'm going to FOSDEM in Brussels, which is the first time I've been to FOSDEM for a few years now. Quite looking forward to that. Yes. Oh. That's the other thing. I'm never sure whether live streams like this really need to have the face of the person. If I'm doing like development stuff, Do you really need to see the person? I don't know. If it was slightly larger and you could see my hands, then might be useful if you want to articulate something and use gestures and stuff. Might be useful, I think. Maybe. Or if I want to hold up a diagram or something to the camera. But I don't know. What would be more useful? Having a full screen text editor and a full screen terminal and just switch between the two when you're working, I guess. I don't know. Most of the streams I see on Twitch, people have their face in there somewhere. I don't know whether that's good or not. I should probably have a shave. Just suggesting you play a different game, Cat. Yeah, totally. Yeah, it is a pretty terrible game, isn't it? Once you have seen it for an hour. I mean, I love it, but yeah, you're probably bored of the music by now, I'd imagine. So yeah, the next one won't be next weekend. Maybe during the week. Maybe during the week this week if I can find some time. Maybe the week after. Maybe next week. Sorry, the week after FOSDEM. That would be cool. The other thing I want to try and do is replicate this setup on my ThinkPad, so I can do this while I'm not at home, because I can't really cart like 3 displays and all this. I'm not sure how well the OBS will do video encoding, because my ThinkPad is only Intel GPU, whereas here I'm using the Nvidia GPU to do the encoding with NVEnc. I've not tried doing, I don't know even if OBS supports hardware encoding on Intel. Does it? One of you can probably tell me that. Yannick suggests maybe my face isn't required. Yes, let's keep it that way, Commander. Looks like that Commander's wearing purple eyeshadow, which is, there's nothing wrong with that, but it's just a bit strange. Why are they invading us, Commander? Well, we don't know why, where they're coming from. Next sector! Watch out, entering their minefield. See, I actually chose to read it this time, even though I've already been through this section like a dozen times. What I will need to do is make sure I get all the text so it's readable in whatever text editor I'm using. That's the next question. Which text editor should I use on screen? Oh, crikey. I've never felt the need to properly learn Vim. I know everyone says you should because, sometimes it's the only text editor available. I've just never felt the need. I mean, I can get in and out of it, and I can find text, and I can, search and replace in the basics, but I've never felt the need to go full on, learn all the intricate details. I don't feel less of a person as a result. The text editor I use at the moment, I was using VS Code for a long while, but I'm actually using Sublime Text quite a lot because it starts so fast and it recovers to exactly what I was doing before I shut it down. And I really like that. I like the fact that if my laptop dies for whatever reason, like the battery completely dies or I have a power cut and, or it crashes or locks up, which is quite rare these days. Linux is pretty reliable like that. I know that if I run Sublime Text, it will just recover all the files that I had open previously. Now I know Sublime Text is evil and proprietary nonsense, but it's really, really good evil proprietary nonsense. Die, blobs. So yeah, I think some of these text editors have an embedded terminal in them, so I could probably have the text editor open with all the YAML or whatever it is I'm editing. Ooh, that was close. And then the embedded terminal view, or just switch to a terminal every so often. One of the problems with making snaps on a video, this is the thing I'm not sure about, is the actual build time takes a while, and sometimes you don't want to sit there for like half an hour. Like if you're building a big complicated snap, nobody's going to sit there and watch this scrolling by. I mean, you could do a bit of chat and stuff, I guess. And, oh, so close. But, not sure what to do about that. One option is to build 2 snaps at the same time, and while one is building, you like edit the YAML for another one. But that could get confusing. Like if people zone out for a minute while you're in the middle of like making a snap of a text editor, and they come back and you're in the middle of making a snap for a music application, they're like, wait, what did I miss? Like, I know what it's like when you're watching a live stream. You're not actually listening to every word they say, and you're not paying attention to everything, and it's very easy to zone out. I zone out and I'm playing a game. So yeah, I think that might be worth doing, is either doing 2 at once or setting aside the build time to be Q&A time, like, you know, or just sit and use that, maybe do a load of typing and, you know, do what I think is necessary to build the thing, and then after I've done that and it's started building, then go through and explain every line and actually write the comments in the file. That would probably be good, actually. While I'm explaining it, write the comments so that when I do a pull request or store that somewhere or come back to it in a year and someone says, why did you add that line? I can say, wow, look at this, I've written comments and everything. Yes, that's a good point, Yannick. I should use a GUI editor. Most of them, I think I can just Control+, Control-, and just make the font nice and big and chunky, and they should be readable. The files that I'm doing are not likely to be massive, so you'll be able to understand with only like a third of the file on screen at once. You don't have to be able to see the whole thing, like, to understand it. I think, especially for a Snapgraph YAML, it's broken up into like stanzas, and you only need to really understand one at a time. There are some relationships between one stanza and another, but yeah, I think that's probably the way forward then, is to... Yeah, I think you're right, Paul. One snap at a time is right, because otherwise it will be massively confusing. I have... Sometimes we... the team that I work with, we go into our London office and we have a snapathon, and we just build a big list of things that need snapping, and we just go and burn through them. And when we do that, often, you know, you start building one, and then your computer is, you know, that XKCD comic of, you know, you're busy because it's compiling. That happens, and then you can't really just sit there and stare out the window. You can go and get a coffee, but it's good to do something else. So often we will just open another terminal and start snapping another thing, and then just like context switch between them. And I think you're right. I don't think that would be appropriate for a live stream. It's okay if you're balancing all that information in your head, but expecting viewers to balance that information in their head is a bit too much, I think, probably. Yes, definitely. Thoughts on VS Code, says the 89th UK Beast. I like VS Code. So on the terminal I use Nano. Yes, we're getting into editor wars. In a terminal I use Nano. And before I used VS Code, what did I use? Mostly gedit, I think. I just used gedit. But then when VS Code came along, I was like, oh my gosh, this has got like Git integration and stuff. Like I can check out a Git repo, and I can create branches and switch branches and push my code upstream all directly from within the text editor. I was like, oh my god, this is a revolution. So yeah, VS Code I really, really like. And I know some people hate it because it's quite chunky and it's Electron. Boo, Electron, etc. I don't feel that way about Electron. I mean, I don't like the plumpness of Electron applications. My single most popular tweet I've ever tweeted was me complaining about how fat the Slack client is. So that resonated with some people, it seems. So yeah, but when we made a snap of Sublime Text, I started using it because obviously I've got to test it, make sure it works. And when I started using it, I was like, oh my gosh, this is a really, really good text editor. I now feel super guilty because I haven't paid the developer the £80 and I'm continuing to use it for free. I feel terrible about that. I should probably pay for it because I do use it every single day. I think it's £80, or is it 80 Australian dollars or something? It's quite expensive, but when you think it's a primary tool you use on a daily basis, it's not really that expensive. You know, imagine if you had to pay for, like, imagine if you had to pay for some of the command line tools you use on a daily basis. Imagine if Linux, when you install your Linux distro, you get like a kernel and bash, and that's it, and then everything else you've got to pay for apt, you've got to pay for dpackage and vi. Imagine if you have to pay for everything. Would that make you more likely to be more choosy? I think it probably would. And probably not install all of the editors and all of the compilers. It shows just how lucky we are to have all this free as in beer and free as in the other one. Software to like use. When I first, my very first PC was an Epson PC. I can't remember exactly when I got it. I think it might have been 1990 or thereabouts, and it has a 8086 CPU running at 8 megahertz. I think it had a turbo button so you could downclock it to 4.3 megahertz. But there was obviously no internet then, and the shops didn't sell PC software. So I had to order from a catalogue, mail order catalogue, the software that I wanted. And so I had to send them a check for however much, with a list of all the floppy disks that I wanted to buy. And then a little padded envelope would come in the post a week or two later with a load of floppy disks, and I'd be so excited with all this software. And I was very choosy about what software I bought because obviously I had to pay for every single floppy disk. Whereas now it's just like apt install everything, and I don't even think about it. It's weird, isn't it? Oh gosh, there's been a lot of chat. Mostly talking about VS Code. Yes, VS Code is awesome. I love it. The only reason I use... So VS Code has a similar feature set to Sublime Text. The only reason I'm using Sublime Text is because it's faster. It just loads faster. That's it. And I find that quite important. I quite like in Sublime Text I can type subl, S-U-B-L, while I'm in a directory. Just do subl dot, and it will just load that folder in a new window. So while I'm working on that project, I've got that window open with all those files open, and then when I close that window, that's that project finished. But if I'm not finished with it and I want to start another project, I can go to another directory and just do subl dot in that directory, and then I get another new window with that project in. So typically I have 3 Sublime Text windows open at once, one for each project that I'm currently working on. So the 3 snaps that I've worked on this weekend. Oh, I've remembered what the other one was. It was last week, it wasn't the weekend. I generally have those 3 windows open, like, constantly all day. So the other snap that I made recently was for that Kickstarter, the app that's on Kickstarter called Akira. It's a UI UX design tool that's on Kickstarter. I made a snap of that and turned it into a blog post to, let people know how to create GTK snaps. That was quite good fun. Writing up, in English, how to make a snap. If you're interested in reading that, go to ubuntu.com/blog, and it's right at the top. I think it's called Zero to Hero or something like that. It's about Zero to Snapples. I can't remember, something like that. But it like talks through every line of the YAML, and like if you made a GTK app, that's a sample that would get you started. And actually, since I wrote that blog post, I've snapped 2 more GTK things, so it's certainly been useful just for me to write that up, because writing up how to do something galvanizes it in your head as to how you do the thing. Even if I actually did it for other people, it's actually helped me as well, because now it's cemented that knowledge in my head. That noise is kind of annoying after a while, but you only hear it on this level where there's mines. Damn it. Joe says, stop talking about imagining paying for stuff. Well, when you think about all those free software developers out there who in their own time write software, you look through GitHub or GitLab or Bitbucket, all these little projects that people have written, all these little libraries that people have written, whatever they are, whether it's a simple node library, or we're very lucky to live in a world where there are people who are willing to give their time, or employers who are willing to dedicate their employees' time to write software that we can just grab and use. It's pretty amazing, really, isn't it? Poo. Like this game, someone wrote this and put it on GitHub, and now I've been playing it for what seems like 9 hours. I'm testing it. I'm play testing. Obviously I'm testing the snap to make sure it works well. Oh, also, cool story. So I made this snap, and there's a bug in it in the game. If you downloaded the game yesterday or the day before, there was a bug in that the audio didn't work. So you'd open the game, and there'd be no music and no sound effects. The game works otherwise, but there's just no audio. And it turns out there was a bug in the upstream code that had never been fixed. And one of my colleagues pinged me a couple of hours ago and said, I fixed that audio error in Ascii Patrol on the weekend. And he did a pull request to the upstream project. So if you go and have a look, you can see on GitHub, if you look for Ascii Patrol, you can see there was a pull request done probably about 6 hours ago by one of my colleagues. I think it's only like a 1-line fix or something, but it means the audio now works. So he pinged me and said, hey, I've fixed that Ascii Patrol. And so I just went into build.snapcraft.io and went build another version. And that's it. That's all I had to do. He fixed it upstream. I just pressed build. And that's it. I got a new build of this game for AMD 64, i386, Raspberry Pi, and S390. If you know anyone who's got a mainframe, an S390, they can install this game. I've built an S390 version and a PowerPC version as well, and ARM64. There are builds for all of those architectures of this silly game. Silly but fun and frustratingly addictive game. But that's one of the things I like about snaps, is if this game was in the Ubuntu archive or the Debian archive or Fedora archive, if it was packaged as a deb and that bug was there, it could potentially take weeks or months for that fix to get out to a user. But in this case, it took under an hour. Like, once it was fixed upstream, I just pressed a button and the fixed version I tested, and then I pushed it into the stable channel, and now anyone can play the fixed version. I love that. I love that fast turnaround of software. And I realise there's a place for the archive, and it's good to be able to have debs, because then you have the stability and known release cadence that, if you want to keep a specific version, you can do. But I also like... Ow! I was hoping I could shoot that. I also like the fact that I can have, super fast delivery of software to my machine. It's like Snaps make me think of like Android. Like I have no idea what version of Spotify I have on my phone. I've got no idea what version of VLC I have on my phone. No idea what version of Chrome or Brave or any other application. Version numbers mean nothing on phones. You've either got the latest version or you've got an old version. And generally, I turn auto update on my Android phone, and I know most people do. I know some people don't like that, but that's the way the world is moving. And so I have the latest version of everything on my phone, and I quite like that my desktop is moving that way as well. Like, I don't care really what version of Chromium or Firefox it is. I just want the one that's the best one, probably with the highest number. And I appreciate that sometimes newer versions come with new bugs. That's the same with all software, but I quite like having software at the speed of light, or whatever you want to call it. Equally, there is a place for old crusty software like this. Like, I'm as much of a retro fan as anyone. Well, you'll know that if you've ever seen my collection of ThinkPads that I have kicking around. So I like old software as well. But on my day-to-day machine, I want the latest. I want the latest stuff. Boom! Ah. Don't you do it. I'm ignoring the chat again. I'm sorry. I'll look at it again when I get to the end of this level, or when I die, which will be soon. Yes. UKB's 23:70. Oh my god, is it 20 past 11? Good lord. I feel like having a pot noodle. Do you know what? I really like making my own pot noodles. I started making what we call not poodles. Putting dried noodles in a like a plastic pot, putting some peas and corn and some. I used corn and some various herbs and spices and some what's that, miso soup in there as well. Just chuck some boiling water on. Yummy. I do like some noodles now and then. So Paul says the only thing I would like is like verified account for snaps that are no longer supported by the devs. Yeah, I don't know. I don't quite understand that. What, like for an application that's outdated? Do you mean? Is that what you're saying, Paul? Grilled cheese sandwiches. My son loves grilled cheese sandwiches. I sometimes cheat, but yes, grilled cheese sandwiches are lovely. Oh, can't beat a grilled cheese sandwich. Oh man, I'm getting hungry now. Must resist. We don't make grilled cheese sandwiches properly in the UK. Like, we don't do the whole butter on the outside and put them in a pan on the top of the burner. Well, I don't. I'm sure some people do. I should do that, but I don't. There's a grilled cheese sandwich subreddit, would you believe, that I'm subscribed to, and it's just people posting pictures of their grilled cheese sandwiches. It's very sad, I know, but yes. They're that good that there is an entire subreddit for people making grilled cheese sandwiches. Not just making them, but taking photos and telling you exactly what type of cheese is in them. And, yeah. Oh, that was close. I wasn't even paying attention then. Oh, look at that. I was looking at the stream. Yes, grilled cheese sandwich, and the other cheesy thing that my family like is macaroni cheese. Love macaroni and cheese. Such comfort food. They either like it with bacon, like cooked separately but just like mixed in at the end. So you got like little bits of crispy bacon mixed in with the macaroni and cheese. Or hot dogs. Like the worst, most disgusting, cheapest, rubbish hot dogs you can find. Like put them in a pan, bit of water, warm them up, and then chop them up and chuck them in with the macaroni and cheese. It's such junk food, but they love it. Grilled cheese sandwiches out of bagels. Grilled cheese bagel. Doesn't all the cheese fall out the middle? How does that work? Right, come on, let's go. Let's go. We need to get past this level. Pew 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 pew. Yeah. Ha! Die, scum. That was close. Yeah, you drop a crater there. Cheese? Bacon potato soup. Oh, I don't make enough soup. I don't know why. I should, because, you know, it's cold here. And soup is nice. I went to Barcelona a few weeks ago for my brother's birthday, and I found a restaurant that sold oh god, what soup was it? It was aubergine, I think. Aubergine. Is that what you call eggplant? I think. Yes, I think it is. Aubergine. Aubergine soup with a little rolled up bit of Parma ham in it and a poached egg. It was so nice. He bought the bowl with the poached egg at the bottom and the Parma ham rolled up on top of the poached egg, and then poured the aubergine soup all over, and it was so nice. So nice. I'm gonna die, I'm gonna die, I'm gonna die. Ah. So the other pitfall with having access to source code is people can modify it. There's a game that we had on Ubuntu Touch on the phone some years ago, and it was like that piano tiles thing where there's like piano tiles scrolling down towards you and you have to touch the screen on the black tiles. And myself and one of my colleagues were in a bar playing this game on Ubuntu phone, and I kept beating him, and like we kept handing the phone back and forth, and I kept, like, every time he got a high score I got higher, and then I went to the bar, and when I came back he showed me the device and was like, haha, look, I've got a really high score, and he got like this infinitely high score, and it's because the code was like open source. He just opened a text editor on the phone, edited the code, and made it so that like wherever he touched the screen it counted as a touch on the black tile. So yeah, cheating, but it was quite funny because he brought the phone over, and like, for a moment I believed that he'd got this like ridiculously high score. It's only because he had access to the source code that he could do it and knew how to write QML. Those were happy days. Gibby says, I wonder what Microsoft will offer for free this year. So people have been making predictions about what Microsoft will open source this year, because obviously, you know, Visual Studio Code and PowerShell is now available on Linux, and I think you can run Microsoft SQL Server on Linux, and you know, Microsoft have been doing all kinds of interesting things at GitHub and making it possible for developers to create private repos for free and stuff. And it's funny, I know there are some people in the Linux community who absolutely hate Microsoft, and believe me, I used to be that guy. Like back when I used to work on Windows systems, I used to get so frustrated because I felt Windows was such a terrible platform. You know, when you're at the coalface all day, every day, working on Windows systems, and it just feels like they're out to get you and they're doing things to deliberately frustrate you, which wasn't necessarily the case. It was just bad software. But even now, people still hate Microsoft for one reason or another, and I think they are changing very, very significantly in the last 5 years, tremendously. And I know some people in the free software community don't want to hear that, and they won't accept, and they'll never trust Microsoft. They just think it's all part of this embrace, extend, extinguish thing. And I used to be that kind of guy, but I've kind of changed my tune the last few years. It's nothing to do with working at Canonical and, Canonical having a relationship with Microsoft or any of that. It's just when you take a step back and look at the grand scheme of things, they are changing. Things have changed. They've done things that they never would have done in the past. Like when they developed libgit 2 and they made the process of merging much faster, they could have kept that code to themselves because it was licensed in such a way that they could have just made their own Git implementation that was just faster than everyone else's, faster than GitHub, faster than GitLab, faster than the others. But they didn't. They shared the code. They didn't have to, but they did. They shared it with GitHub and GitLab, and GitHub and GitLab and all the other Git implementations are now faster as a result of code that Microsoft made available as free software. That would never have happened 20 years ago, 20, 30 years ago under Balmer at all. But people have long memories, I remember being frustrated at Microsoft Windows. But I think they change. So yeah, I don't know what they'll do for free this year. That would be interesting to see. Maybe... I know some people have speculated that Microsoft Office will be the next big thing, and it'll become like an Electron app or something, and you'll be able to just, download a Deb or a Flatpak or a Snap or whatever app image of Microsoft Office, and you will then have Office on Linux because it will be ported to Electron. Maybe. I know people have speculated that that's going to happen. Who knows? What are we going to look back on at the end of this year and go, wow, didn't see that coming? Because certainly didn't see the IBM buying Red Hat thing coming. Didn't see that coming at all. What are we going to look back on this year? Please don't say Microsoft buying Canonical. Everyone says that. Why were you frustrated with Canonical, Wendy? Sorry. Misspoke. Why were you frustrated with Microsoft, Wendy? Oh man, I'm so terrible at this. I still want to carry on playing it. I mean, don't get me wrong, Microsoft as a company are huge, and there are parts of Microsoft that do things that are not good. Like, some of the QA on Windows 10 is a bit dodgy, and the fact that they revert settings and, undo things that people who are keen on privacy do not appreciate in Windows 10. I can understand that. Alan is addicted to Ascii. I think I kind of am getting to that point. Pew pew pew. I even tested this. This even works in a TTY. Like, you could do a server install and play this. Snap install Ascii Patrol on your servers now. I don't think it will consume too much CPU. I don't think anyone will notice. It's got black and white mode as well, so you can like turn off all the colour if the colours make your terminal go freaky. You can just make it go like black and white monochrome, which is quite handy if you're that way inclined. I have an old green screen terminal behind me. I might try it on one of those. Although, no, it won't work because that terminal is like 9600 baud. It won't even be able to draw the screen before I'll crash into a crater. So yeah, that won't work. Ah, you switched to Linux 3 years ago. Ah. It's interesting hearing other people's stories of how they switched and what made them switch. I can't even remember what triggered it for me. I remember using Red Hat for a long time. I was using Red Hat up until Red Hat 7.1 or something like that, and I got really annoyed with RPMs and dependency hell, and my webcam didn't work, and I had to keep hunting down RPMs on... There was a website called RPM Find or something like that. And if I wanted to install a piece of software, I had to go and manually find all these RPMs, and that was just madness. And that was quite a while ago, I guess. It was like 15, 18 years ago, something like that, I guess. I don't know. When did Red Hat 7.3 come out? And it was not long after that they changed it to Fedora Core. That was when Fedora Core came out. And by then I'd switched to Debian. And I only switched to Debian because in my Linux user group, my mate Hugo said, "You should switch to Debian. It's much better than Red Hat." I was like, "Oh, all right then." See, that's the thing about Linux user groups. It was about the people who were willing to help you and what they were running. It was always a good idea to run what the other people are running, because if you're going to start asking for help, you probably want to be running whatever they're running, because then you can be more chance that they will see the errors and can help you debug like weird packaging problems that only exist on that platform or whatever. Oh my gosh, is this the furthest I've got? I think it is. Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. Woo! Oh, AV software. Oh man. Yeah, I don't miss that. My mother and father-in-law know that I'm not a massive fan of Windows, and I remember I think it was Christmas. Oh no, I have got past this level, and I've got to the blobs. One Christmas, the next door neighbours to my in-laws said, "Oh, can you help us? We've got a problem with the computer." And I know Alan's very good with computers. You know that good with computers thing. Hey, Big Daddy Linux. Hey Rocco, how you doing? I got asked to go round the next door neighbour's house at Christmas. It wasn't Christmas Day, obviously that would be a bit much, but it was, "Oh, my computer's not working, it's terrible." And I went round there, and oh my god, it was so slow. It had every browser toolbar. You know those funny pictures you see online of people who have like all the toolbars? Well, he had that. All the toolbars on his system, and I think he had like 2 or 3 antivirus software and no anti-malware. It was just It was just a horrid mess, and it was so slow to do anything. It was slow to reboot, and everything just was so painful. So I was sat there for like 2 or 3 hours, like sorting this thing out, undoing all the rubbish that was on there and putting something else on, and eventually got it working. I think he gave me a bottle of whiskey or a crate of beer or something. You know, the standard payment for helping family members with computers is beer and whiskey or whatever. Oh man, never again. I hated that, because it's one of those things where, you know, you've got to make that decision. Am I gonna nuke this thing from orbit and tell them, haha, you got to reinstall everything, I hope you've got backups, or are you going to tell them, yeah, okay, I'll fix this, give me 5 hours and I'll do it? I keep hitting that one, and yeah, I actually sat there for 3 hours because I did not want to reinstall his operating system and all his stuff, and I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. But yeah, I've stopped doing that because it's not good for your health, really, to like sit there and, I mean, it's good if you get paid for it, you know, well done. I couldn't do that. It was just too frustrating for me. But you know, I appreciate someone needs to do it. Unfortunately, there are plenty of people out there who have systems that are massively compromised and have browser toolbars and no antivirus, and like I've even had family members like knock on my door with a laptop and a power supply in their hands and say, "Oh, I've got a virus" or something. And I've had one where they bring it round and it's got those BitLocker things where they pop up a thing that says, "We've encrypted all your files, haha." But thankfully it was like a fake one that just popped that up. It didn't actually do any encryption. It just like, it was one of those things that like pops up a message, "The police have been informed." Those things, not BitLocker, you know, the things that try and get money out of you maliciously, Bitcoin out of you. And I removed that. I think actually I might have used an Ubuntu boot CD and like hacked the registry somehow, but I try and avoid that now. But as much as people tell me Windows 10 is awful, I don't hear so many occasions. I mean, I hear problems with Windows 10, but I don't hear so much people saying, you know, a virus took out my Windows 10 machine or that kind of stuff. My mum now has a Chromebook. She did have an Ubuntu PC, and there was nothing wrong with it. She only ever used Chromium. She had one button on the desktop, basically, on the launcher on the left-hand side. It was a Chromium icon. That was it. And she just used email and would go to like BBC website and Google and Amazon. That was it. That's all she ever used. And that computer was a 32-bit install, and the browser was no longer supported on 32-bit, so I had to get rid of that computer. And I thought, well, do I buy her another computer or should I just get her a Chromebook? Because she only ever uses a browser anyway, and Chrome is easy to support. You just turn it off and on again and everything's fine. And generally that is the case. The only problem I had with it was getting the font right, so that it was big enough for her to be able to read it. But yeah, that's what she has. She just has a Chromebook that she uses now. How many more hours am I going to sit and play this stupid game? I wonder how many other people on Twitch or on YouTube are playing Ascii Patrol. I imagine not very many. Yeah, Paul, I have seen people complain about Windows updates. See, that's the other thing. That's the thing. Previous versions of Windows, it was third-party stuff that was causing the problem, and they seem to have solved that. But now it's Microsoft themselves that are the problem. Like their update service is failing. I've got a Windows 10 machine behind me that I use for playing games infrequently. It's actually more used by my son when his mates come over and they want to play Fortnite. They play on that. And I've had updates that have not installed or have like rolled back and stuff. But I can't remember the last time I had anything infected with anything. My wife has a Windows PC for work, but fingers crossed that's pretty okay. But yeah, going back to the original subject, I'm not as angry at Microsoft as I was 20 years ago. But then I don't have to touch it, and someone pointed out, well, maybe the fact that you don't have to use the thing is why you're no longer angry with it. Like, yeah, that's plausible. Turns out, not being exposed to thing makes you no longer angry about the thing. This is a cheeky little bit, isn't it? Hello, Kevin. Thank you for joining us. Yeah, this was originally just me testing my testing my setup. Now I'm just addicted to playing this stupid game. Every time I say stupid game, I don't mean it's stupid. Look at him. Actually, maybe it's a woman. Maybe the commander is a woman. That's why they got purple. Yeah, that I hadn't thought of that. It's got blue, long blue hair and purple eyeshadow. The commander is a woman. Clearly. Silly me. Or, you know, a bloke who just likes purple eyeshadow, which is also fine. Maybe that's a thing on their planet. I think I need to snap some more games. It's worth pointing out, like, whenever we do a social post about, like, if you ever look at the Ubuntu Twitter account or the Snapcraft.io Twitter account or the Facebook accounts. Yes, I know you may not use Facebook. Oh my god, that's a big jump. If you ever look at the Snapcraft.io one and you look at the posts we do about applications, we like try and promote as much as we can the software that's in the Snap Store. Games, invariably, more people retweet and favourite game tweets than anything else. Doesn't matter what the software is and how cool or interesting it is. Games are like the thing everyone wants on Linux, turns out. So yeah, I'm looking for more interesting games. I realise, you know, Steam is full of games and GOG is full of games, and yeah, there's all these other places where developers can put their games, but yeah, if you spot something that you think should be snapped up. The other thing that's interesting about snapping stuff up is snapping games that are difficult to get hold of. Like a game I used to play a lot, Wolfenstein Enemy Territory. It's actually a little bit difficult to install on Linux now because it's so old. It doesn't use Pulse Audio. It uses, like, I don't think it even uses ALSA. I think it uses OSS or some nonsense. But games like that, like old stuff that people still like and are still popular, some way to preserve those things. That's another thing that Snap's are really good at, is preserving old software. The old NCSA Mosaic browser is available as a Snap install Mosaic. You can party like it's 1992 or whatever it is, whenever that browser came out. Like, most websites don't even work because this thing doesn't, you know, it can't do SSL, and, well, it might be able to do SSL, but there's loads of stuff. The modern web just does not work in that browser. But it's quite amusing for, you know, historical record, and I think that's where Snaps also come in, is being able to preserve these things in a package that you can run on anything. Especially these old games that otherwise would be hard to install. So I might have a look at snapping some of those. I've certainly already tried doing Enemy Territory, and that is snappable. But the problem is on a modern system it messes up your video display, so it can it goes full screen, and then when you exit the game you end up with a 320 by 200x display, which is a bit rude, so I need to fix that. But that kind of thing is those balls are very bouncy. Right, I think this might be the last go. Battlefield 5. Yeah, no. I don't even know what that is. It sounds like a fighting game of some kind. The other thing is, we don't have payments in the Snap Store yet. So there's no way for people to get paid for their application. They can take payments some other way, like Spotify does. They have a subscription service that's available as a Snap, but we don't currently have it hooked up so that you could sell your game as a Snap. And that's obviously a problem for some people because they want to be able to get paid for the work they do, right? And until we have that, if we ever have that, I don't know. I don't know if it's on the roadmap at the moment. Then that's difficult for those people who want to get paid for their software. So, games that are free, especially games that are open source like this one, are great candidates. Because open source software we can massage to make them snappable. Proprietary software is harder. Like I was saying, enemy territory is not free software. It's a proprietary binary, and that can be a problem. Because if it monkeys with the display, then we have to wrap it in some kind of script to try and stop it monkeying with the display, or if it uses some outdated sound system or some outdated way of addressing the display or something, it can be a bit of a problem. So yeah, free software games. I've done a few. But I would like to snap some more. So if anyone has any suggestions next time I do this and I'm actually doing proper work and snapping things. Crash! Needs to have double jump, this thing. I don't think it has double jump. No, it doesn't. Yeah, if people come up with ideas for... I press jump then. If people have ideas, suggestions for things that I could snap that are games, free software games, I would appreciate that. You know where to find me on Telegram and stuff anyway. Oh, boom. Drat. Well, I think this streamy thing is working. Alright, one more go. Just one more. Just one more. And then it's going to have to be bedtime. Ah, gotcha. Because some of us have to be up for work in the morning, I'm sure. Oh, poo. So what I will do, yeah, that's the other thing. I'm not sure whether to do snappy stuff on my own personal YouTube account. Probably not. Probably the snappy stuff on the Snapcraft YouTube account. So I'll then have to share it on the old Twitters and stuff so people discover it. But it'll be archived anyway. But the thing about doing it live is you get to do Q&A, and I quite like that because, people can tell you if they don't understand why you've done a certain thing, or, what does that mean, or why would you do it that way? Have you considered doing it this way? You can get those kind of suggestions, which are useful on a live stream that on a pre-recorded you just can't do. But I will need to spread far and wide, so I will need help from people spreading the good word of when Popey goes live. I'd appreciate that. I'll probably like tweet it out from the Snapcraft.io account and then retweet it from mine, I guess. Share it everywhere else as well. Might do one during the week, maybe Tuesday night. But again, I won't be playing this again. Well, maybe I will. Who knows? It is quite good fun. Ha! Die! He was going to dive bomb me then, wasn't he? Or he was crashing, I don't know. Whoa, 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 whoa. Oh, another one. Oh, how am I going to get across that? Oh, okay, I can get across that. Ah. X-Bill. Someone asked about X-Bill. Gosh. That's from a long time ago, isn't it? That's the other thing. Things that are really, really old, that are already in the archive, that are like well packaged everywhere, make no sense to snap. So we have to be quite choosy. Like we're not out to snap the entire world. We're out to like snap stuff that makes sense. So if someone says, "How do I install this thing?" You know, it's not available on my distro for whatever reason, that might be a candidate. Or sometimes things like Xonotic, for example. I think there was some licensing drama about that, about the assets or something. And that's the same for a lot of games. So there are a lot of games that you won't see packaged in Debian because there's some license conflict in the assets, not necessarily in the game code. The game might be open source, but the assets might not be. So, and that's where snaps can come along, because we don't have the same guidelines that Debian have for the Snap Store. Still prefer to have loads of open source stuff in there, but you know. Right, that was fun. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, all of those people who have given me feedback on how I can improve this thing, and for helping me get the settings right. Oh my gosh, have I really been live for 2 hours? Holy cow. That's madness. You know when people, like, I look at all these YouTube videos and I think, nobody's going to watch that for 2 hours. Well, turns out maybe they will. Alright, well thanks everyone, and have a good week, and see you all again another time. Cheerio, bye bye.